by popular demand, and that being we kind of asked him to hang out. Phillip, Andrew Morton's going to hang out with us for the next hour.
Why not?
Why not? You know what? We got some celebrity justice somewhere in the works. You can comment on that. He's a big-time Hollywood director and get his thoughts on things. He might know more about this stuff than I do.
And even if he doesn't, we'll still keep him around. He doesn't have to.
We're not. I felt it was weird. We're like, why are we throwing him out? He's got more talent than I do. Just stick him around. So he's going to stick around. So
perfect.
Now, Mr. Los Angeles over there, congratulations on your L.A. Kings just winning the Stanley Cup. Does anybody in Los Angeles follow hockey at all unless the Kings are in the playoffs?
Honestly, I don't hear anything about our hockey team. The only thing I do hear some Dodgers talk for sure, and when Dodgers play cards, it always ticks me off because I have to listen to that crap. And of course basketball. Basketball is the number one sport in Los Angeles, and the Lakers. And it's kind of funny because my film has some Lakers, and I always get a chuckle out of that. That's what they're really passionate about. So,
do you find that there are a lot of transplant people in L.A. that stay loyal to their hometown sports teams?
There's a handful. I mean, I know John Hamm is a big outspoken advocate of the Cards, and so I'd say he's a good representative of St. Louis pride. But other than that, not too much.
Have you run into anybody from either St. Louis or somebody who didn't grow up in L.A. that has either heard about the film or touched base with you? You're really surprised, like, wow, I can't believe so-and-so knows about my movie.
Some of my industry friends have heard of it for sure, and maybe their friends. Not yet. It hasn't gotten to that point in Los Angeles yet. You have to really make a huge splash. Although we did have an article run in the Huffington Post last week. That was kind of like a Q&A with me. And that's starting our national exposure. So maybe starting in the next couple of weeks when we start doing publicity out there.
You have film festivals and stuff lined up. And then if you do or you don't, how do you get into a film festival?
Film festivals are crap. I'll just tell you that much. I mean,
that.
they are totally
around.
They are rigged, and they're money making machines. They don't care about your film. Half the time, the submissions aren't even watched. I don't care who disputes that. If you don't know somebody who's programming, you pretty much don't have a shot. Or if you don't have a huge star in your film or a well-known producer, film festivals are a waste of time.
Has the internet or anything changed the dynamic of either how to make a film or how to fund a film, or how to get a film exposed?
Absolutely. I mean, everybody lives online now. So if you have a well-known Facebook presence or a web page and you get a lot of traffic to that, or even a YouTube video, if that takes off and goes viral, you have a hit. So nowadays, I mean, I just think people's attention spans are so freaking fast that, we'll be watching trailers as movies because, nobody will be able to sit still for more than 5 minutes. So the whole movie making machine is changing rapidly right now, and indie filmmakers have a much bigger chance to break out.
What do you think the biggest technological advance has been in leveling the playing field for independent filmmakers to get something not only that people can be exposed to, but get something that people will watch and really enjoy?
I think the advances technologically, just in terms of digital video, are huge, and that digital video is now kind of an industry standard. It's very cheap to shoot a film and to edit. Final Cut Pro used to be very expensive. Now you can edit your own films for nothing. So it gives filmmakers the freedom to experiment and make whatever they want. Now, it's more the quality that needs to be improved and versus the actual technical aspects of it.
What have been some of the responses from people that aren't sort of political folks or relatives, just the average person that goes down to the Tivoli and sees it? Have they hit the Facebook page or hit you up on Twitter? And what's sort of been the reaction?
From people that are not familiar with the subject matter, in St. Louis, they don't care for the most part. And that's just the attitude of St. Louis as a whole. I mean, if you live in West County, you could care less what's going on in North County, even if it's a film at the Tivoli. In terms of other cities or other people, if I'm on a plane and I show somebody the trailer or tell them about it, they're always really fascinated, especially when they see the trailer. It's so, politically and racially charged that it gets their attention. And a lot of cities have dealt with white flight, so it triggers kind of a nerve across the board.
I always find that people in St. Louis won't drive past the next Schnucks or Dierbergs.
Yeah.
Their fiefdom is like 3 blocks.
And not only do they not care, there's animosity there. I mean, the different municipalities have outright just disdain for each other, I think.
Is that the whole where did you go to high school thing? Is that about the class?
It absolutely is, and that's how hyper-segregated St. Louis is. It's segregated by race, it's segregated by class, but also by religion. So you can figure out somebody's complete background just by what municipality they live in.
Is that strange to people in other places? I mean, you live in L.A., you've traveled around. Do other people find that sort of fiefdomism, they find that unusual? Because I find it very bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I think visitors that come to St. Louis, they see how just racially segregated St. Louis is, and they find that fascinating. It has, because of the lack of community, it doesn't have a very strong personality because the people themselves don't band together to promote unity.
But it's strange because the one place that everybody seems to sort of come together is the ballpark.
Yeah, it's the teams. Yeah,
they will wear their sea of red, and the Bluesiers will come out in force when it's necessary. So it's almost like they galvanize behind the banner, and from the outside world, sort of seems like a whole community full of very bonded people. But then once you get inside the gates, everybody's fighting with everybody. It's like it's very balkanized.
Yeah, because I grew up in St. Louis. You don't see the peculiarity of it, and then once I moved to Los Angeles, that's when I started to see it. And thank God, other cities do not operate like this. There's something weird going on here.
All right, let's take ourselves a break. We're going to do some headlines when we come back. You want to talk about the news?
Sure. I mean, if it's Hollywood, I'll talk about it.
We'll do some entertainment news. We always do a thing called Celebrity Justice, where we take people that are sort of famous or involved somehow in the world of Hollywood, and then when they screw up, we
put them on the stand,
the spotlight, and make fun of them.
Sure.
You in for that?
I am totally down.
We'll find some of that. Phillip Andrew Morton's here, movie director, local guy, done very well. It's fun.
This is fun. I love it.
He does have a ride home. He didn't have to leave. He chose to stay.
Yes, they're not holding me against my will.
There's no hostage situation here.
This is a dream come true.
Stand down. Stand down. He's fine. More with Phillip. Night Shift Effort.
I'll play along with the charade. There doesn't seem to be a reason to change. I feel so...
That music means it's time for us to take a look at celebrities, famous people who have ensnared themselves in the legal system. We call it Celebrity Justice, and this is the perfect venue and vehicle for us, Kyle, because we used vehicle because it is an industry term, because we do have a real-life Hollywood director and producer and writer with us, Mr. Phillip Andrew Morton. We're going to discuss these issues with him and see if we know anything about what we're talking about. Probably not. Sandra Bullock is a famous movie actress. She was married to a guy named Jesse James for a while, and I've seen her in Speed. She was in a movie with Melissa McCarthy that I can't remember the name of, and she's considered to be the one woman that George Clooney, over the age of 40, might sleep with, except he was in outer space, in that outer space movie.
Gravity.
Yes, I never saw that. She has a stalker, sadly, Joshua James Corbett, and when they give you the middle name, it's either a movie director or a serial killer. So a guy with the middle name, Phillip Andrew Morton, what do you think about the stalking issue involving Joshua James Corbett? He's been charged with 19 felony counts, including 7 counts of possessing a machine gun, 2 counts of possessing an assault weapon, and 10 counts of possessing a destructive device. I can ask you a comment about this lunatic, but just sort of the whole idea of celebrity.
Yeah, that's something I see up close every day. I mean, I've worked with celebrities. I work behind the scenes on major films.
Have you had a stalker yet?
I've had stalkers, but not because I'm a director, but just in general, my personal life. Yeah.
They just gravitate. Just gravitate to him.
Well, I was going to say, is it a status symbol in Hollywood when you get a stalker? You're like, I made it. Like, I'm famous enough that I have a stalker.
Well, it has nothing to do with even, it's all about status. It has nothing to do with looks or heartthrobs or anything like that. It's one time I remember I was having lunch at this eatery right down the street, and Jason Segel, he was sitting at the table next to me, and I was sitting kind of from his viewpoint, and I would see everybody just kind of walk by and recognize him and start getting on their phones and whispering to their girlfriends. And it was because I was sitting so close to him. It was kind of like I could see from his perspective, and it was creepy as hell because you're being under surveillance all the time.
Without names, have you worked with people or worked on a film with somebody that was really afraid that their safety was at risk or that their life was in danger by a stalker issue?
I think all of them. I mean, I've met some really, really famous celebrities, and I think they're always hesitant when they meet any new people because they're not sure what you have up your sleeve. It takes a lot to have trust in people because you don't know if you're being used or if you're going to try to, manipulate them or blackmail them. So from the ones that I've become friendly with, it took a long time to earn their trust.
It's bad enough. It's hard enough in Hollywood where you can't trust any of these people. But then you've got the added thing of security and the possibility of physical danger. I mean, forget about people screwing you over on a contract or a deal or taking an idea and running it and using it as their own. I mean, that's sort of the grist for the mill out in L.A. Now you've got the added thing of some guy like this. Listen to this thing. Corbett possibly did this. The claim in this indictment here is that he brought weapons, machine gun, bomb, guns.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Jumped Bullock's fence. There were more weapons of mass destruction in his backpack than there were in Iraq.
That's insane.
Jumped the fence, broke into her home on June the 8th. I mean, that really is terrifying.
Yeah, I would be terrified too. And he should be arraigned for all of those things. I mean, that's not stalking, that's threats.
If convicted, he could face 12 years in prison. And then you just think about it, like another guy with 3 names. I'm trying not to put you in the category with the guy with 3 names, but they did it. I think this all started with Lee Harvey Oswald. Then there's Mark David Chapman, the guy that shot John Lennon. It's horrible. So any suggestions, now that you're a big-time Hollywood director, famous people, how should you deal with the public so you can be friendly but yet at the same time be safe?
Well, I have it's a split thing. I have somewhat of compassion for celebrities, but at the same time, if you're in the public eye, you are asking for attention, and that's what a lot of celebrities love. Attention, obviously. That's why they're on TV and they're in movies. So it comes with the territory, and especially if you have a big fan base and they're the ones buying tickets to your movies, they are financing your career ultimately, and I think they owe a certain amount of time and gratitude towards their fans. So at least acknowledge them and say hi and give a smile.
Does Twitter help communicate with people in a way that sort of diffuses their need to have access without breaking that barrier of privacy?
Yeah, I think it gives the illusion, even if those celebrities are not operating their own Twitter accounts. I think it gives the fans a little piece of feeling like they're being heard. Yeah.
The Twitter account where it's not operated by the actual star reminds me of the letter that people get from the president. It's not signed
Yeah.
by the president.
Totally.
It's just like auto pen. Oh, my goodness. I got a letter. My grandfather has a letter from FDR. Probably not. Probably
Right.
from the secretary. But at least it placates them in some way.
Yeah, it's a new
All right.
illusion.
What's your Twitter handle, my friend?
It's Phillip Andrew Morton. No. It's Phillip A. Morton because Phillip Andrew Morton doesn't fit my Twitter. So Phillip A. Morton.
And there's 2 L's in Phillip. I learned that when sending him pictures of.
Yeah, dirty pictures.
Yes, and they'll be on the Night Shift page and on his own page. There's a story, Philip, about Roman Polanski. Speaking of great Hollywood pedophile directors,
Yeah.
this guy Roman Polanski. This is quite a story. Rosemary's Baby, right? Then he was married to Sharon Tate, who was tragically and horrifically murdered by the Manson family.
Yeah, I drive past that street almost every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Are the houses or the house, the Folger house or whatever, is it still there in the
Oh,
city?
yeah. Yeah, Trent Reznor recorded a record in there, The Downward Spiral.
That's incredibly creepy, but now that he's involved with Beats, I'm afraid to say anything negative.
Yeah, he's a
Powerful man.
very powerful, very smart.
Do you get a creepy feeling when you go by that location?
I do, absolutely. And it's kind of in this canyon, and it's Coldwater Canyon, and it's got kind of a creepy vibe, lots of big hanging trees. And even though it's sunny when I drive past it, all I can think of is those dead bodies laying all around. So, yeah, it's got a creepy vibe.
Did you see Helter Skelter when you were growing up as a kid?
I didn't see it till much later. I don't think I was allowed to see it till.
Is it a good film?
I think they did a good job at representing him, yeah.
Do you think that there's a movie about either Manson or something like that still can be made? I saw the one about and the reason I mentioned that is John Holmes was an adult film star, and he was involved in some way in some murders in California of some drug dealers back in the 1980s, and there was a movie about that had what's his name in it, Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer, yeah.
And it was really good. And I thought there's always a movie about sort of the psychological aspect of creepy people.
Yeah, I think they've pretty much exhausted that story, and they always focus on the murders and his followers. I think if they were to make a film about the period right before he was really having them kill people, like the Beach Boys, how they were tied into his story.
That's right. Dennis Wilson was.
Dennis Wilson. I know there's been a couple of films about to be made about Dennis Wilson. I don't know if they include that chapter of Manson. But
I always find that really interesting, and that kind of brushes onto the Hollywood friendship thing. Is here's a guy, that Manson is a serial killer and a lunatic, and he befriends a guy that's in, at the time, maybe the biggest band and one of the most respected bands in the world. He can break through into that inner circle of all people, but the average person is just a fan. The Beach Boys or somebody would be kind of creeped out by him.
And that just showed, the power, the psychological power that Manson had, that he could seduce anybody with just, his personality.
Well, Roman Polanski had to leave the country because he was about to be sentenced on a case where he pled guilty to having sex with a girl as he was 14.
Yes.
Over cocaine or something. Now, yes, he lost his wife, and no, there's no excuse. But years later, he's still considered to be, because of Chinatown and other films, he's considered to be a great movie director, even though he's a fugitive. So he's got a new film out, Venus in Fur. Are you a fan of his work in any way?
Absolutely. I love some of his stuff, yeah.
And I think it's almost time to, let it go. It's been forever. The judge in the case sort of double-crossing him on his plea agreement. I know he screwed up, but sort of let it go.
And he was kind of set up during that. I mean, there's arguments that she was dressed way older than her age and that there was some seduction involved, and not framed, but
it was the
well.
70s. Everybody was on Quaaludes. They didn't know what was going on. It was 40 years ago.
Yeah, get
Let
over it.
So what about sort of directors, whether it's Polanski or somebody else, that you take their style or that you can tell that they have a particular style, and who do you admire as movie director?
My favorite living director right now is William Friedkin. He directed The Exorcist, The French Connection, To Live and Die in L.A., and his most recent film was called Killer Joe with Matthew McConaughey. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's 77 years old, and he's still at the top of his game. Most of my favorite film directors are dead.
Tell us about them. Who do you like?
I like Alfred Hitchcock. I like Louis Buñuel, Ingmar Bergman. Let's see. Gosh, there's tons. But those stick out as my absolute top 5, probably.
When you're looking at a film as a professional, do you look for a style or do you look for a narrative? What do you think is the thing that calls you to somebody as a director first? Are you looking for a stylistic director, or are you looking for somebody who can really tell a story?
I think you have to have a combination of both. And I think if you're on one extreme or the other, your film could be very indulgent. You talk about somebody like Terrence Malick, who I've worked on a couple of his movies. And his first film, Badlands, is one of my absolute favorite movies. But yet lately, he's all about style and not substance, in my opinion.
Well, the year that he made Thin Green Mile?
The Thin Red Line.
Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
The movie about Guadalcanal.
Yes.
It's one of the most beautiful movies, but yet it's chilling because of the horror that belies sort of the way he's filmed it.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant movie. The first time I saw it, I didn't like it. And the reason I didn't like it is it wasn't Saving Private Ryan, and I think it was either made the same year or sort of like within a year of that movie. And I was looking for sort of a Pacific version of Saving Private Ryan, and I didn't get it. But now that I've seen it 3 or 4 times, every time I see it, I'm captivated by it. Is there something about staying power that maybe people like me that aren't skilled, we don't get it right away? Is that okay, as long as it's a piece of art that the director is comfortable with?
I think it definitely impacts the longevity of a film and also the box office. A name can go a long way, but I think films stand the test of time. For instance, like Stanley Kubrick, if you talk about a movie like The Shining, there's kids nowadays that are, teenagers that see that movie and love that movie, or Clockwork Orange. And it's because the skill that Stanley had is just undeniable, and his reputation is well deserved. But a lot of films that are forgotten are usually because they're forgettable.
I walked out of Eyes Wide Shut when it was in the theaters.
I had a fever
hated
when
it.
I saw that movie, and it made it even more miserable. I hate that film.
I hated that movie, and it was on not long ago, and I watched it again, and I actually was spellbound by it because I started to get some of what was going on. I think what he was trying to do. And who was the other film director that was in it that played the guy with the glasses passed away? Stan. Anyway, I watched it again, and I kind of liked it, but I want to love a movie. I want to be engrossed in it the first time that I see it. I want it to take me to places. And when I get Tarantino, who I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, I do too.
And when I get Scorsese, that I think when he wants to tell a story right, I think he's brilliant. And I get into those characters. I cannot step. If Casino is on, I watch it.
Sure.
If Django is available, I'm watching it. Or even Pulp Fiction now, or Reservoir Dogs for sure.
Kill Bill.
I watch it. Kill Bill. I'm in the movie, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. Do you still feel that way about certain directors?
Sure. Tarantino is definitely one of them. I mean, I love anything he touches. I'll go see it. I think he's probably the most well-regarded out of our current crop of directors out there. I haven't been really impressed with a lot of stuff that's been coming out of Hollywood lately. There's nothing lately that I've seen that I've been like, wow, that's going to be a classic.
What's the best movie you've seen in the last year?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. I was asked this pretty recently.
By Larry King?
Yeah, Larry King.
Larry King. What movie do you like? By the way, you know the story on Larry King and the questions?
No.
There's a producer in his ear, and it was a gal that is from St. Louis that grew up with my cousin. That was his producer, and I think her name is Sarah. She would ask all the questions into Larry King's earphone, and then he would repeat.
Really?
Those are great questions. No, he's just repeating the questions that my cousin's friend would ask him in his earpiece. A great question. He was just repeating things. It works if you got the gig, I guess. What was that?
Actually,
Well,
okay.
Yeah, ask him about the best year. No.
I do have my favorite from last year was Spring Breakers. It was
with James Franco and Selena Gomez and such.
Yep.
That was worth watching. I saw that he had the grill, and I said, I'm not wasting my time. Like, this looks terrible.
I thought it was brilliant. It was my favorite of last year.
Why is it so? I mean, why is it better than just some terrible? Like, I'm sorry, it just looked like I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to see that.
Well, the director is Harmony Korine. He directed Gummo back in the '90s. He also wrote Kids, which was from the '90s. These kids go on spring break and they start doing drugs and they go on this road trip and all their innocence is kind of shed. And James Franco plays this drug dealer and he's phenomenal. I don't know why he didn't get an Oscar nomination
Really?
for it. Yeah. And it's a very intense, very edgy, very pop culture, very colorful. I highly recommend it. It's very disturbing, though.
One last question before our break. Who's a better alleged pedophile director, Bryan Singer or Roman Polanski? You don't have to answer.
I actually know Brian, sort of. Definitely Roman.
Is it something we should not anything we have to get a deposition for?
No, I wouldn't do that. But Roman, for sure.
Yes, much better. So, there you go.
Yeah.
So the top, according to Phillip, the top alleged pedophile director. Speaking of Tarantino,
What about him?
I can't even think about anything other than a straight razor cutting off the ear of a cop. When you hear this.
Yeah. He's great with soundtracks.
Great integration of music and visual.
Totally.
Maybe he and Tarantino the best, or he and Scorsese the best ever.
I think Paul Thomas Anderson did a great job with Boogie Nights. And
We'll talk about that too, and other stuff because I'm fascinated by the filmmaking process.
Great.
More with Phillip Andrew Morton, and we'll make fun of celebrities a little bit when Night Shift returns.
Losing control, yeah, I'm all over the place. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Detective. When I hear that song, I think of the movie Rushmore, directed by Wes Anderson. And our favorite director is Phillip Andrew Morton. He's in studio.
Yep.
And we're talking a little bit off the air about different styles. Wes Anderson has gotten a lot of praise and a lot of attention and made a lot of dough, and he's made some pretty good movies. Royal Tenenbaums I like a lot. Rushmore I really like a lot. Now the new one, Grand Budapest Hotel, screw it, because our pal's moving Blackjack.
Blackjack.
It's the second movie.
Oh, that was good. That was really good. I should have. That should be the new title.
Spanish Lake. It beat that thing out, right? At the Tivoli.
That was a Freudian slip.
Tivoli said, "Screw it."
Yeah.
The hell with it, right?
It did feel good. I mean, to see my poster next to Grand Budapest was kind of like a little ego boost. But then when we saw that there was practically no audience in that screening against mine, felt really good. So,
we're talking.
But
about.
no disrespect to Wes Anderson, and it was just they'd been out for a little while. So
he does a pretty good job. And if he wasn't friends with Owen Wilson, nobody would have heard of this guy, right? Wasn't it Owen Wilson that got him famous?
Yeah, the Wilson brothers. They were both in Bottle Rocket, his first breakthrough movie.
Have you ever heard my Luke Wilson impression?
No.
Here. Yeah, I don't know, but it sounds like something that we could do. Yeah.
That's
Thank
good.
you very much.
That's very good.
What?
Wilson. All right. It's horrible. Anyway, so Jay Leno is in the news, and I find Jay Leno to be annoying because I know he used to be a really good stand-up comic, and in the 1970s and early 1980s, he and Jerry Seinfeld and a lot of people that I really like and respect were working that tour and working clubs and making people laugh, and he was on Letterman a lot, and he was very edgy. And then he screwed Dave over because he wanted that Carson show, even though Johnny wanted Dave. And ever since then, I feel like he's just totally just phoning it in. And yet today we see that Jay Leno has been announced that he has won the prize for the Mark Twain Kennedy Center Performing Arts Award for America's Humor Prize. That's horrible.
Oh, come on now.
He's not funny anymore. He's not funny.
Well, then why do you get the best ratings every night?
Because it's out of habit. The Tonight Show, when Johnny Carson was the host.
20 years of habit?
Yes. So when Johnny Carson was the host of the Tonight Show, it was the place to be. If you were an up-and-coming stand-up and he got called over to the couch, your career was made. Roseanne, Drew Carey, Gary Shandling. There were so many people that would, Stephen Wright, they would just get called over and their career would instantly be taken over. And then with celebrities, they would just stop in. Bob Hope, everybody, just, I got somewhere to be. But he'd just stop by. And then things sort of changed because of the additional folks in late night. But for me, it's always been Letterman. Been the standard bearer since Carson. It's just funnier and edgier than Jay. And from my perspective, one of my passions is about stand-up. And for me, a great stand-up is somebody that pushes the envelope rather than just tell jokey jokes. And Jay Leno's become a hack comic because he just tells jokey jokes.
And he makes a lot of money, and he has a lot of cars, and he had a really good show, and he wins all these awards.
Yeah, well, McDonald's makes a lot of money. It doesn't make it filet mignon.
Yeah, but with the public, when you get to that level of fame, the networks put censors on you, and you're not allowed to talk smack about certain celebrities. You have to kind of clean yourself up, and I think that both Dave and Jay have been victims of that. One thing.
Now, who do you like now?
I was a big fan of Chelsea Handler. I'm still waiting to see if she kind of gets soft. I think she's gotten a little soft lately, but she's a big fave in terms of talk shows for me. I like Seth Meyers. I don't know. I just watched him last night. I think as a writer, he's not the best. I think he could take Conan's writers, but I like Seth Meyers' delivery. I like Jimmy Fallon a lot. I think he's probably my favorite.
We both like Jimmy Fallon. I'm a Jimmy Kimmel guy. I like that sarcastic smarminess. It sort of just oozes out of me. And yet, Jay Leno, I think the most fitting award, maybe the John Holmes Award. He probably could get that, right? He and Jimmy would.
Yeah, that's the rumor in Hollywood. Jay Leno has the biggest
collection of motorcycles in all of Hollywood.
Yeah, his chin's not the only big thing.
Hey now,
Well, that's the thing. If you go through life with that chin, you got to hope that you got blessed somewhere else. You know.
Yeah,
It's,
Howard Stern said he's got a coffee can underneath those pants.
Very good. Coffee can full of old jokes.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk movie directors and not about any of their
Their body
endowments.
parts.
But let's talk about who's making movies that matter these days. Who should we either be paying attention to, or who's up and coming, besides yourself?
Besides, I was going to say myself, of course.
That are out there that really we either don't know enough about, or that as novices, as lay people to the Hollywood industry, that we're not getting the art, or we need to be paying more attention to their creativity.
Gosh, I wish I could answer that question. I think we're kind of at a standstill right now in Hollywood. There's a passing of the guard, and I think a lot of the younger directors, well, comparatively, like Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson, they're ruling the roost. And because of the economy, Hollywood's not letting a lot of films be made, especially through studios. So in terms of younger directors, there haven't been many. And to be a director, you have to be at least 30, pretty much. And anybody under the age of that, they don't take seriously. So
How old are you now?
I just turned 35, so I'm entering
correct.
I'm
Very
entering the
serious
old
now.
man director zone. So they'll give me a chance one of these days. But it's an old man's game.
Well, what are you trying to get into? You just did the Spanish Lake, which is obviously a big documentary. Are you trying to get into major feature films and all that stuff? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm using documentaries as my way to kind of step over that boundary. But I've worked on documentaries for the last 5 years. Actually, Cat Williams, you mentioned stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
did his documentary.
Really?
I did.
But he's nuts.
Actually, in person, he's very down to earth. He's kind of a nerd. Actually,
I love his stand-up, and I think that the way he was sort of co-hosting the roast for Flavor Flav.
Oh, that was good.
That he was so good in that, and really stood up to what I thought were some very heavy hitter comics. And then he drove a car on the sidewalk in Oakland, and I don't know exactly what that was about.
Yeah, he had a nervous breakdown. I think he had the same thing.
Did he go Dave Chappelle?
It's exactly what happened.
Tell me about Cat Williams, because I'm fascinated by comics. I love stand-up comics. I think they're geniuses, actually.
Well, I think, the Dave Chappelle syndrome, they get to a point, especially as an African-American comedian, that you make a lot of jokes about the ghetto and pimps and that street life, and that just kind of propagates that mythology, and it's really hard to break out of that. You become kind of a ghetto character.
Do they feel guilty that maybe they've fed into something that they really were trying to be ironic about?
I think it's both that and also that the industry doesn't allow them to break out of that. That becomes their kind of act, and there's so much profit to be made out of it that they see that they're ultimately, like any celebrity, kind of a puppet. And once they realize that, I think they have kind of a nervous breakdown.
That happened to Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor is my favorite comedian of all time. Right. If somebody says, who's your favorite comic of all time? It's Richard Pryor. And the reason is Richard Pryor told stories about growing up in Peoria, and you think, well, that's nice. No, his mom was a prostitute. I mean, a horrible life. So he would tell these stories, and then the stories would become sort of self-fulfilling prophecies. And people wanted Richard to be crazy and wanted Richard to be out there. And what Richard wanted to be was a director and a producer. And so what he did is he ran away from Hollywood towards people that didn't know what they were doing and got taken advantage of. I get worried about creative people because they're always right on the edge between brilliance and madness.
Insanity, yeah.
So
I fall in that category.
Well, tell us about Cat Williams. I mean, make me feel better about Cat Williams and how he's doing, and if we're going to get more good creative comedy out of him.
He's kind of signed off for a while. He has done some stand-up acts. He swore off stand-up for a while, but he has been making kind of spotty appearances in several like New Year's shows and things like that. He hasn't done an actual DVD release, and he hasn't officially come back yet. I think he will. I think he needed some time off. But it's the Hollywood syndrome. I think celebrity, that lifestyle comes with a lot of drugs and alcohol and sex and all that kind of fun stuff. And if you get lost in it, it can do a number on your head.
Please give Cat Williams our best. If you ever run into Dave Chappelle, give us your our best. And then whatever project you're working on, no matter what it is, you'll come back and you'll share it with us.
I will.
Phillip Andrew Morton, you're the best, brother.
Thank you. I want to do this again.
Congratulations
this was a blast.
on Spanish Lake, on the upcoming Blackjack movie,
Yeah.
and everything else. And thanks for leaving me free tickets down at the Tivoli.
You're welcome.
Don't worry about it. I'll pay.
No. You got it.
That's Phillip Andrew Morton. Thank you, brother.
Have a good night.
All right. From Kyle Buettner and Scott Sherman, we wish you all the best. Have a great night. See you next time on The Night Shift.
12 hours out of Mackinac City, stopped in a bar to have a brew.